Welcome back to another wonderful episode of Success Innovation. Today we have Sofia Pantoja, a recent graduating student from USC with Aerospace Engineering bachelor's and also a master's. She managed to concurrently work in the rocket team at USC as she was pursuing her academic degrees. She has secured an entry-level position with SpaceX and is ready to embark in a fantastic career with them. Welcome, Sofia Pantoja, to Success Innovation. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you today?
Doing well, doing well. I gave a little introduction about who you are at large, but is there anything that you want to add to that small introduction?
Oh, no, that encompasses everything. I love space, love engineering, love learning, and it's been great to be able to do that over the last couple of years.
Yeah, awesome, awesome. Uh, I've known you for a couple of years, and I've kept track, and I know your trajectory to some extent. But I would like from you to share what some of your main core values are, and why are they important, and why do they drive you?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things that like drives me is like always, I think I mentioned it, wanting to learn. I think something that's really crazy what I've realized is like as you learn more, you just learn that like there's so much more that you don't know. So I think that's been something that's always really pushed me. Like I always want to ask questions. I always want to like understand more than what I currently know, and especially in a field that I've fallen in love with like space and engineering, there's so much like more that you can always like unravel and like try and figure out more of. I think in terms of like values, I think like work ethic was something that's always been really important to me. Like that was instilled in me by like my family of like always giving like 100% in whatever you're doing and like never giving less than that. So that was something that always pushed me like in whatever, in extracurriculars in high school and in college. That was always something that like drove me a lot to like always keep on giving my best effort. And I think that always allowed me to get the most out of those opportunities. So that was incredible. And then just being like a kind person. I like to work with other people. I like to be a good person. And I think those like three main things have always really pushed me and like kind of encompasses who I am pretty well.
So learning, making sure that you are kind to other individuals, and also your work ethic are the things that you highlighted. Great, that's really awesome, fantastic. Going back to maybe middle school, you started
Yeah.
being part of, and we're going back to middle school because you just recently graduated, so following the academic trajectory, right? When you were in middle school, how did you decide I'm going to pursue aerospace? Or maybe even
Yeah.
earlier than that. How did you know?
Yeah. So I like didn't realize I wanted to pursue like specifically like aerospace engineering or like working in engineering for a while. Well, like I knew I loved space. Like when I was 8, my parents took me to like the San Diego Museum in Balboa, and then like we went into the space and like aerospace museum specifically. Like that's I got that because I had gotten good grades in like third grade. And that was like my prize. And like I remember like falling in love with the Apollo 9 command module. Like they had that exhibit like right when you entered the museum. And I remember thinking like, wow, this is so cool. This is like gone to space. This is so incredible. And I remember just like falling in love with space then. I remember like my whole room became decorated in space, got all the books that are space themed. And I loved space. I didn't realize though that at that point I wanted to be like an engineer. That came in like middle school. I remember just like I had joined the, as you mentioned, like the robotics team there. It was like Rancho's Rural Robotics. And my sister was the one who had recommended it to me because she was older and had been to that school before and told me like you would probably be really interested in it. I like remember I tried out. I wasn't sure if I was going to make the team, and I remember like when I found out, I was so excited. And I remember just like with those 2 years, I fell in love with robotics. At that point, I thought maybe I would want to like go into like robotics as a career. But I just knew like I wanted to work something like in that industry. And then from there, like in high school, that's kind of when I really figured it out of like wanting to be an engineer for like a space industry company. But it was really like space. The love for space came really early, and then the love for engineering kind of sparked in middle school, and then kind of just grew from there.
Awesome. So robotics was one of the big highlights and big instigators to some extent that actually launched you into this particular path of aerospace. Through your path that you've gone through high school, middle school, high school, and college at USC, is there any obstacles that you can highlight or pinpoint that you ran into? Whatever those obstacles, maybe course difficulties, it could be
Mm.
getting classes, or it could be financial difficulties, or anything that you want to highlight for the audience. How did you deal with that? How did you actually manage to overcome those obstacles, if any?
I don't think I have like a one particular like a large obstacle. Obviously, like from middle school, high school, even college, I think something that was always like something I realized I needed to do because if I didn't, it could maybe become a larger problem was like learning how I like to learn. Like going from elementary school, like I had good grades, but I it wasn't perfect. And then I remember middle school, like my parents just commenting that like, wow, like something really changed in you academically. Like I got straight A's in middle school, all in middle school and high school. And then I got pretty high GPA in college. And I think the real big thing there was like figuring out how I like to learn. I like to review in a certain way, like to take notes in a certain way. And that has like allowed me to starting that like from a young age made this the transition from high school and college, which sometimes can be really difficult to like, to others. And I've seen with like friends and even like family members that being hard was something that I never really experienced because I learned from a really like, young age, like how I need to study in order to be successful and kind of put in that extra time because things don't necessarily come like directly really easy for me. But if I study in a certain way and put in that time and effort, things usually resolve really well in terms of academics. There's nothing. I would be like in terms of financials, I'm very fortunate where like for my college experience, I actually had really good academic scholarships. USC has like a scholarship that I applied for. Like pretty much, you apply early to USC, and you can apply for one of their merit-based scholarships. I actually got a full tuition scholarship, so I was very fortunate in that matter. Where like my sister went to USC as well, and she had to take out loans to go to that school. But in my case, I was really fortunate that that didn't have to be a case and financials during my whole college experience wasn't really a factor I had to worry about. I really was able to put in a lot of time to focus in my academics as well as my extracurriculars, like the rocketry club there. So very lucky to say that that's not really an obstacle. But yeah, those are kind of my notes there. Very lucky that I've not had a really large obstacle to overcome. Luckily.
Awesome, awesome. Um, when you transition to high school, into college, into a four-year university, I've always heard and I've seen that there's an adjustment period, right? Did you go through that, or did you notice around you some students that were going through that, and how did you deal yourself with it, or how did you see the best way some other students were dealing with this particular transition, being homesick and or adjusting to the rigorous academic demands that the university versus the high school demands on you?
Yeah, I think I experienced it maybe for the first, like in the first semester, part of that. Definitely something you see with like your friends and other people in your school. I think the biggest thing that's like different is like you go from high school where it's, very much structured. You're at home with your family, you have like these extracurriculars, and you have like, the teachers who are in charge of those extracurriculars really involved. And then you kind of go into like college where it's like, like everything you do is your decision and there's not someone kind of like checking in on you as much or like watching over in the same way. And it's like I think it's very easy to like be lost and be like not sure what to do. I personally, for me, I got involved very early on with our rocketry team. And like that, I think maybe helped my transition even more because it's like I joined that like family and that community really early on. And I got like that mentorship from the older kids, got really excited about something that I was able to put a lot of my time in and really loved. So that kind of added that like structure to like my experience and gave me almost like a home when you're going through that weird transition from like being in high school to college. So that was something I was really grateful on. Obviously, there is like an academic difference, like college classes and high school classes are not the same. But kind of how I mentioned earlier, I'm pretty lucky where like I figured out how I learn really early on. Where although there was an adjustment and like you do get like a like one bad test grade and you're like, oh my gosh, this is the end of the world. But then like ultimately you're fine at the end of the year because like you realize, hey, like I need to change this and this and this, talk to this teacher and kind of figure it out from there. Like something that I even did a little bit in high school was like I would always go ask questions to my teachers like after school, before school. I like used to think like I would always be like annoying them because I would always keep on asking them questions to try and figure out everything like as much as possible. But that skill really helped me in like college where like I could go to office hours and like funny enough, I don't think a lot of people like take that opportunity to like go to office hours and ask questions and figure things out. And that's something that was really helpful for me with that transition of like, hey, like if I did a bad grade here, like don't make this the end of the world. Just figure out like a game plan to fix it before, the final and before the final grade comes out. And ultimately that kind of strategy and plan worked out for me. So yeah, there is a transition, but I think the best ways to kind of do that transition is like find stuff that you love to do, extracurriculars, clubs there, and then take the opportunity to ask questions. And college is hard. Try and figure out a game plan to like best approach that difference, and don't be afraid if you get one bad grade along the way. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So don't be afraid if you get one bad grade, and
Hmm.
definitely start going to office hours. If you're not used to going to office hours, it's something that in college is essential because you'll get more individual attention, and the professors will definitely help and cater to helping you as a student to learn better, and they'll adjust to try to see how you learn, and that helps you in the long run, right? Okay, that's great. Anything that you would like to change about your particular past trajectory in college, university, and or high school that you can reflect on?
I overall will say like I would still do most things pretty much the same. I think something at the very beginning of college, which I think I got over kind of quickly, was I was sometimes like afraid to try a project or try something where like I felt maybe I didn't have experience in it. I felt a little bit uncomfy with the idea of like maybe not knowing how to do it. But I think like something that I learned, and this is even like in my rocketry club or even in my classes, that like it's okay if you're trying to jump into a project where you not may not necessarily know how to do it fully, but you're willing to learn. I think that willingness to learn and willingness to like make mistakes is something that like is very good and will help you grow extremely like in terms of academically or like professionally. Uh, but if you shouldn't let that like fear stop you from doing it. I think you risk like losing a lot of opportunities or losing the opportunity to like learn that subject by thinking like, oh, I maybe can't do this or I don't know how to do this yet. So I'm not going to try. And I think I kind of got over that kind of quickly, just realizing that along the way. But that was something I wish I came into college like feeling very good about. I think even in high school a little bit as well. I think I felt that as well, but it was mainly like in college where I noticed that, and I kind of realized very quickly that that mentality, like even if you're afraid or not sure how to do it fully, still try it. Be pretty surprised of like how much you can learn and how much you can grow by taking those opportunities.
Awesome, thank you. You mentioned, and I'm assuming you're heavily involved in the rocketry, and but I don't know if that allowed you any additional time to focus on any other student organizations, or was the rocketry team your entire activity while at USC?
Yeah, that was my main activity. That the Rocketry Club definitely, it's called USC RPL Rocket Propulsion Laboratory. Definitely took up like pretty much all my free time. Although it was something that was an incredible experience. Like since my first semester, I'd be spending like my weekends, like after classes, even between classes, like in that lab learning and working. Even spent like especially my summer before my junior year. I had an internship, but when I was not at my internship during weekends, I was doing work for that club. So it definitely did take up like pretty much all my time where I wasn't really involved in many other extracurriculars. But it did give me like a lot of opportunities to learn about everything engineering, everything space related, as well as just gain like a lot of good mentorship in a lot of engineering areas. So yeah, it was my main involvement, but it was definitely worth it and definitely helped me grow a lot as an engineer.
You mentioned having an internship. Where was that at?
Yeah, so I had two internships. The summer before my junior year and the summer before my senior year, I had an internship at Impulse Space. It's a startup. Pretty much the founder's Tom Mueller. He was like employee number one at SpaceX. He made his own company, and the idea there, it's like almost a it's able to transport like satellites that would go up into space into where they actually need to go. So like a launch vehicle like Falcon 9 would take a satellite up into like space, but then they need to get to a specific location, whether in like low Earth orbit or in the future like geo, and the company Impulse Space could take you there. So I was in the vehicle engineering team, and it was a great opportunity there to gain like really industry level experience. I remember like I pretty much like learned so much from CAD analysis and honestly like CAD role models where I was like, this is like the type of engineer I want to be in a couple of years. So that was a great experience. It's also lovely because sometimes the knowledge that even I got from my rocketry club, I was able to bring to my internship, and then vice versa. There's knowledge that I gained from my internship where after my first internship, I actually brought that back to my rocketry club and like spearheaded some new projects from that knowledge and like working on like changing some of our parts that we hadn't changed before in a certain way that I like now had experience with. So that was like honestly a great opportunity there to just learn and kind of continue to grow. So internships are really, really important, especially in college, like even more so than necessarily your GPA, like at least in my opinion. And that's kind of what I learned is that like the projects you've worked on and the experience you have and that work you've done means a lot to like future employers as well as just like yourself and your capabilities as an engineer.
Were your two internships with ample space, or
Oh,
was
impulse space. Yeah,
Impulse?
both of them.
Okay,
Yeah.
both of them. Okay,
Yeah.
Impulse. Okay, awesome. So you spent 2 summers with them, and you learned a lot, and then all of a sudden you're like, okay, I'm bringing back information, bringing it to the rocket team
Hmm.
RPL at USC. Let's go back a little bit to how did you actually find out about the rocket team RPL
Yeah.
at USC? And I'm assuming, from what I know, you have to apply to this particular team and you get selected. How was that? How did you find out? And how did you feel when you were applying for this particular team?
So I'll answer that first part of the question, then I'll go into the second part. So I found out of the like I knew about RPL when I was applying. I do think now it's like a larger reason why people even go to USC. Like they want to be a part of our rocketry club. Like I've heard students say that like they applied to USC because they wanted to go to RPL. Like we are like a very much a premier rocketry program. We've gone to space now 3 times, and that's like unheard of in the student rocketry community, even in amateur rocketry. We've broken a lot of records, incredible team. But funny enough, like when I was applying, like I had heard about it and I was like thinking like, oh, I'm gonna definitely try and like tour their lab and check them out. But I was also looking at other clubs at USC. And initially it wasn't just like in my mind, like I'm just gonna attend for RPL. So the first time I actually met one of those students was in my intro to aerospace class. So like when you're a freshman, you have to take an intro to like your major specific class for engineering. And in that class, we had students from the rocketry program come in and present about the club. And that's like the first time I heard about it. I was like, oh, okay, this actually sounds really awesome and really interesting. And I just so happened had like another student a part of the program, one of my other classes, and he seemed like really kind and really nice. And like that those two experiences like in your first couple of weeks at USC, like that kind of made me think like, okay, this is somewhere I want to like kind of like look into a little bit more. We have like an open house slash tour like at the beginning of the semester for new members, and they like sold me then. I kind of went in, they had a really great tour, they showed us the lab space and everyone seemed very kind. And then that was an incredible experience. And then as I started getting involved, like there was a layup to make one of their airframes, like the big cylinder, the rocket. I went to that. It was a like really long event, but like the leads there were really nice. Like the older kids were really nice, and like you start learning a lot, and you start seeing like, wow, this is really really cool, like what they're working on and what they're making, and it's like I want to like get more involved. I want to do more, and that kind of got me really really excited my first semester. And then obviously in second semester we had like a launch of one of our rockets. It we didn't actually recover it, so we couldn't get it back, but just seeing it launch, seeing all that work go in, and just seeing how happy everyone was, like I was sold like in first semester, but second semester, like yeah, I was like, yep, this is the place I want to be. Like there's no other like team I want to join. Like these are the people I want to be around. And then second year, third year, fourth year, same, essentially the same. Just kept on loving it and kept on wanting to do more. So that was the answer to the first question. For the second question, this is something that was really like interesting and kind of shocking to me because like I can also give backgrounds of like all the extracurriculars I did in like high school and even middle school, like you had to apply for. But our program actually had a really unique factor where there was no application process. So our club was really big on the idea of like if you're interested in rocketry and interested in this club, like we don't care what major you are. Like we've had people who were like, I've like art film majors, like and people from Annenberg, like our news like majors who are interested and they wanted to be involved. And we were like, yes, please join. And the big thing about our club is like you get out what you like put in. So if you like are really interested and want to learn, we'll teach you everything. You need no previous experience, you need no background, and you'll come out of the program like learning how to build a rocket and how rockets work. But we didn't have anyone apply. It was essentially like that open house event was like, all right, if you guys are interested, we'll onboard you to the Discord. Here are meeting times. This is how you can stay involved. And if you're interested, show up. We'll teach you. And then as you go, you start learning. And the funny part is like after you do it once, like the next time it comes around, like that same activity or event that you have to do, like you end up also kind of being like advised like, oh, you can start teaching people, like you've done this once. And I think that's like really empowering and something like a really great experience. And it was really funny because like robotics in middle school, robotics in high school, some of the other extracurriculars I did in like middle school, even like I did like knowledge bowl, we had to apply, we had to have interviews, we had to do like mini tests. And that was something that was really shocking for me that like that wasn't the same here. And there's other extracurriculars at USC that they do have application processes. So it's not like every program's like that. It was something that was like kind of unique to my club. And some other folks at USC also don't have applications like other clubs, but it was something that kind of shocked me and something that I think also allowed us to get a lot of talent that no matter what point of the semester, like people could get involved, not like, oh, you missed the application deadline for this cycle, try again next time. So it was really special, and I think something that really shocked me, but something I think was really good for our program.
Awesome. From being involved and heavily part of the RPL team there, any benefits, any lessons learned that you can apply and attest to your success academically and or obtaining that internship and or your new position with SpaceX?
Oh, 100%. It's like so interesting that even when I was like trying to get those initial internships, like in my opinion, the first internship you get is always the hardest to get. Makes sense. Like people always like want people with like past experience, so sometimes it's hard to get that first one. But during all those like interviews and application processes, I had times where the folks I was talking with would like go directly like to the first question was like, all right, I see you're in USC's Rocket Propulsion Laboratory. What did you do there? Talk to me there. Like that's kind of like all they wanted to hear, which was interesting because I guess I forgot to mention I was involved with other stuff. I kind of forgot. Like RPO was my big one. My freshman year and sophomore year, I was in a research laboratory. It was a composites research lab. It was like paid research. It was a kind of also part of like one of the other things the school offered me, like when I was applying, was like, oh, we'll guarantee you research opportunities your freshman year, which is pretty unique, something I was really excited for. So I did research my freshman and sophomore year and the summer between those 2 years in the same lab. We got a couple of awards. It was like composite based research and also 3D printing. So like additive manufacturing research. So I was involved with that. So I had that in like in my resume and like other some like some other small stuff when I was initially applying. But like the things that people wanted to talk about the most were my rocketry lab. And it was about those projects there and what I had learned there, and the questions that they were asking me to kind of see like what my engineering knowledge was about those projects, like certain ways I calculated like a stress or a factor of safety or like or a margin of safety, and like what factor of safeties I was using to prove a part was cleared to fly. Like that was all stuff that were being asked about those projects. So definitely my internships were because I had experience with certain areas that I had like worked on in my rocketry club, and that's kind of why I know I got hired for those roles initially. And then obviously like with the second internship, it was at the same company, so that was based off of like the performance there during that first summer. And then with my like full-time offer, that was also just pretty much my resume about projects at RPL. Of course, there's also like technical tests and like questions they ask you just to see your knowledge there. But when it came to conversing about like or talking about like a certain project I was really proud of, it was about a project I worked on in RPL and kind of talking about that. So it gave me a lot of experience and a lot of opportunities to get a lot of technical knowledges and kind of get to a point where like I had some projects I could talk about and be really proud of. So something I'm very much like grateful for, of course, and definitely definitely what got me the jobs. But yeah.
Awesome. From this particular rocket RPL experience, you've shared with us about going to space, launching into space, breaking so many records, being part of that summer open house effort at various levels when you were starting to maybe at one point possibly leading some of the team activities that were going on there. But what's the best moment or memory from being part of this particular team or club?
There's a lot of good moments. That's
Okay.
hard.
Okay.
There's like really fun ones. Like okay, so my junior year, that was the first like in my time of being at USC, we made it to space twice. They
Okay.
had also made it to space back in like 2019, so like before I was in USC.
Mhm.
But that gap of us going back to space and that first time our club had gone to space was 5 years. So in my junior year, it was October of 2024, we had launched the rocket. And the first time we got, like, we knew we had made it to space, but what really got me was when we found like in our GoPros like a footage of like the planet and our nose cone in front of the planet, and then like the moon at the very top of the frame, and like another shot where like the sun is like kind of hitting. Like that was like I hadn't cried when we had launched and we knew we made it to space. I cried when we got the rocket back and we got that first photo, and like I was the composite lead that year. So my junior year, I was in part of the composites team. Composite team is in charge of everything that's made of composites, like carbon fiber, fiberglass. So that's the nose cone, that's the airframe, that's the fins, the nozzle, some internal parts as well. And it was like my first time being like a lead, and like what got me was when we saw that photo, the nose cone and the planet, and it became my favorite photo, and I think like a lot of our club's favorite photo. But that made me cry, and that was like a really good memory of just like all the work that like we had been working for, and kind of just seeing that, and that made me really happy. Another really fun memory, I think like these two are pretty tied. So my senior year, I ended up going into like a lab lead position. So pretty much like I kind of oversee all of my like sub teams. So like composites then became one of the sub teams I was overseeing as well. Like, everything else like propulsion, recovery, kind of like overseeing the other teams. That's kind of the structure of our program. So that was a really fun role. And I think like a really fun memory for we did two launches this year. One was like a lower scale vehicle, and then one was a space shot. So when I was trying to make it to space. So whenever we get a rocket back, we play a song called Fireball. And and the reason why we play Fireball was my freshman year, that rocket was called Fireball. We sadly didn't get that one back, but for the two rockets this year, we like it was our tradition, like because we were freshmen when that happened, to play that song when we drive it back to camp. So like for both vehicles, playing that song, driving it back to camp. That was like a really fun experience. And like you have everyone kind of like cheering and kind of like wanting to go see the rocket and like running up to the rockets, and like just like having Fireball maximum volume, like that's like another fun memory and just a good callback to like our freshman year and kind of that whole experience. So those two are definitely like my favorite memories.
It's awesome, fantastic, really cool. Um, then we go into you coming up to graduation, right? And as every student, time goes and you graduate. But I want you to tell us, was SpaceX on top of your list to actually get a full-time position? How did you actually end up getting that particular interview position? Did you apply quite a bit? Was it online? Was it in person? Career fair? Was it because you actually worked an internship with the first employee of SpaceX that launched their own startup? How did this come about?
Yeah, so I actually had applied and then I had my job offer first semester of my senior year. So it was back in September, I think it was. So pretty much I had applied and then I was just trying to get like a see if I could get an interview. And pretty much I got like a couple calls of like, hey, yes, we want to set up some interviews. You had to do some like tech screens where like you're answering like technical questions or questions about your resume. That's usually how like most interviews of most companies work, even for internships. And then after that, I went on site and then I got like a tour of the facility as well as a couple more interviews and then just talking about projects I've done in the past. So that experience was definitely like very difficult, especially like right at the beginning of the school year when like I mentioned before, I was in like a high position in my club. So and we had like a launch dated for a couple weeks like into that semester. So it was kind of balancing everything like interviewing for a job, making sure my academics like I still like I still want to do really good in all my classes, so making sure nothing there was slipping, and then also kind of working with my rocketry club. So it was definitely like a hard time, but it ended up working out really well where I got like an offer for a role. I definitely wanted to try and experience like working at SpaceX at one point in my technical career. It just so happened that I had the opportunity to take advantage of an offer that I got and kind of start out there like as my first like full-time job. So that's something I definitely wanted to kind of get the experience of and try and like learn as much as I can while I'm there. And yeah, that's kind of how it worked out. I also have a lot of friends that also are going there. Like we're pretty lucky where like USC is located like in the big space hub in LA. Like that was also a reason why I decided to go to USC when I was initially like applying and deciding because like there's a lot of space companies in like that LA region. It's like really great opportunity if you're interested in like aerospace or astronautical engineering. And so like a lot of us have like very similar experiences of kind of going through that process and ending up at SpaceX. Yeah.
Awesome, great. So you went through that interview process with SpaceX, and all of a sudden you get this technical questions. Were they in person? Were they virtual? How was that process with SpaceX before you actually got an offer?
Yeah, well, you have for internships, they're all virtual. But when you're doing a full time, if you haven't came from like a previous internship, then you do tech screens like on the phone. You do a couple of those, and then also you have to go on site, and you're gonna have in-person questions there. Again, similar to like questioning about your resumes, questions about like tech questions, like things to see how you think, things to see what you know already. And having you talk about certain projects you've done in the past. So it was a mix of both for at least the full time offer. But it was also really fun because you get to like visit the like the headquarters and like kind of the shops there. So that's kind of really fun, like a really fun experience. Just kind of get like a taste of what you could experience every day in the future possibly.
Awesome. What would you recommend for the listeners or the audience who's interested in obtaining an opportunity with a big corporation that they're probably struggling trying to get their hands around it?
That's hard. It's definitely like always a hard process, like no matter what. And even no matter what part you are in like college or, even if you're trying to get like an internship in high school, it's everything is always very hard. I think the best thing is like apply very early, and then try to like apply to a good range of places that have things that you're interested in, but also try and like also make sure when you're practicing, like trying to always have like a good, I don't know, like kind of like a story, like if there's certain projects you're really proud of, make sure to try and highlight that. Like that was something that I always tried to do, like in my interviews. Like if like like you don't know what they're gonna ask you, like they can ask you anything. But if there's certain questions that might be coming, like what's a project you're really proud of. Always try and have like a good answer to that, and try and explain like what was the problem, why did you do this project, how did you do it, and kind of that impact, like highlighting those like kind of key factors, I think are always very important, and something that can be really helpful. And then at least for engineering, like at least for the ones I've done, like tech screens, like we've had classes in college where like you have like basic like mechanics and materials, like you do learn like a lot of those basics in the classroom. So like trying to refresh on like all that material is always really good, because like if you get called back to something that you learned in the past, it's good to kind of just have a little refresher if it's been a minute. And then just always keep trying. It's like it's very hard, especially to get your first internship. I think just keep trying, and just trying to show your passion and like love for the job or the position. I think it comes through, at least in my opinion. And that's something that like I think I always try to like showcase. Like if I love this industry, you can hear it in my voice usually, and I think that's something that's kind of nice, and it just also helps you kind of stay like energized throughout that process.
Awesome. And going back to your academics, you actually did your master's concurrently with your bachelor's.
Mhm.
How was that? Is there a special program at USC, or is this something that you decided to take upon yourself? And how difficult or how easy was this?
Yeah. So pretty much at USC, and I even heard like I've heard from other colleges that they do this as well. Like when I was like deciding what places to pick, I've heard of other colleges doing it, but at USC it's called the PDP. It's a progressive like degree pretty much. So pretty much what you can do, and usually it's done in like 5 years. So you do your bachelor's and then you take like one extra year to do your master's.
Mhm.
Um, Pretty much it avoids you having to like apply for a master's program from another school, and it's very easy, like as long as you have like a minimum GPA. I forget what it is, they always change it, but it's not very difficult to maintain. And as long as you have that and you have a certain amount of like units already like underway, then you can actually like start doing like a master's program. So I took my master's is in astronautical engineering, so bachelor's in aerospace engineering and master's in astronautical engineering. So I applied pretty much like end of my sophomore year, and then I was taking master classes the beginning of my junior year. So I was taking like it was really cool. We had one of the master classes was like human space flight, and it was actually with like a past astronaut. That was like one of my favorite master classes. So I was taking that, and like I think I took one other master class that semester. So my first semester, my junior year, and then every semester I just was taking master classes. It is kind of hard to finish in four. It's not impossible. I have two friends who also did the same. They finished all their like degree requirements for both. Same as me. Theirs are both in like in sorry, I'm getting over a cold.
Okay.
Um, yeah, so I have two buddies that also did the same. We also have other friends that are taking like one extra semester. Some people do it in like the extra year, but it's like pretty feasible to try and fit in. And something that I think is like a great opportunity, because you come out of college with, your 2 degrees, and then it's like, oh, this is perfect. For me, like I was taking classes every semester, and I actually took a summer class for my master's class going into my senior year, because I knew like how my schedule worked out, and especially like my involvement with my archery club. Like there was only a certain amount of like I was maxing out my classes pretty much every semester. Like I was taking 18 units most of my semesters. That's like the maximum you can take. I would sometimes even take like 19 units this in like some certain semesters. So it's definitely like not like like you definitely have to put in effort, but it's definitely really feasible in my opinion, especially if you plan ahead. I had really good advisement from like older students who I'd seen who had done that. And I remember they told me like when they were seniors and I was like a freshman or a sophomore, like they told me like send me like a course plan you're trying to hit for every semester, and I'll tell you if you're doing it the right way. Like there's certain semesters, like just from being a student, where you're like you want to take a class this semester, or like don't take those together, like that's gonna kill you, like don't do that. And so I got like that advisement really early, and that helped me a ton because I got to avoid some of the mistakes they had made. And I was like always super grateful for that. And then, when the younger kids started asking me that, I offered the same, gave them similar advisement. So I think that really helped me and made it a lot like really feasible. So very, very great opportunity. USC has it. I know other schools have it. And I think it's really great to just get the two done. And then it was a big thing for me that I knew I didn't want to take an extra semester. I wanted to just start working immediately, not delay that. So it was a great opportunity to kind of get both done.
Awesome. That's great insight, great perspective. We move on to what I call rapid fire. So for those next couple of questions, going to be short answers, concise answers. So good leaders always create good leaders. Do you have any individuals, any mentors that you look up to? Who are your mentors?
So many, so many. I know this has to be quick, but yeah, in our rocketry program, like even just as a freshman, like there is people that I admire. Like whenever I see them, like I'm always like, yeah, you inspired me to get into this field, and like I look up to you still now. So there's so many people, and I feel like every single year there is like someone that like had helped me and still help me even today. Like if I have questions, like I'll text them and they answer me like very quickly and just very insightfully. So I got those mentors mainly for my rocketry program. And there's some even others in my internships as well, but definitely a lot of people and very, very important to always have those folks around you.
Awesome, great. What's the one question that you wish people would ask more about you, but they seldomly do?
Uh, that's a hard one. I don't know. Uh, I actually don't know. Maybe like, uh, is there any other ways to do this? Like if you're in like discussing a project, I think it's always good if there's like even if you're presenting like a path forward, if there's someone maybe presenting like an alternate path, because like even in any discussions, it's good to have like a lot of opinions and a lot of thought processes. So I guess like there's more of a technical perspective, but like it's always nice to have someone being like, oh, how about this way or like a different way? Like it's always good to have that different perspective in a conversation.
So having a different perspective, that's something that you would wish people would ask more. Okay.
Yeah, I think it happens a lot already, but I think it's always better to even have that even more. Yeah.
Okay. Fantastic. Uh, you've gone out to space with your RPL rockets, right? And we're in the age of Marvel superheroes. What do you believe your superpower to be at this point?
Work ethic. I think that's my superpower. I will always keep working. I love working. I love learning. That's something I always say. I think that's put me in great opportunities and get great ways of like having learned a lot so far, and hopefully will keep helping me continuously learn more.
Awesome. So work ethic and continue learning. That's great, great information. Any particular book, movie, or podcast that you believe has made an impact in your life and you wish more people would actually take advantage of them?
Yeah, I mean, I'll have a good answer for this. Don't really watch a lot. I like a lot of podcasts. A lot of my books aren't necessarily with like space related. They've been mainly like a way to just have fun and like, a fictional story. I think like if I can go TV show, I love Star Trek. I grew up watching Star Trek because my mom loved it. And that like I remember when I was little, I was like, oh man, I would always want to be an engineer, like Enterprise, and I still like watch the shows. So maybe that.
Was it The Next Generation? Was it the original one? Next
I'm
Generation, Captain
I'm a
Picard?
big fan of Next Generation. Yeah,
Okay.
Captain Picard is great. Also, a good fan of Voyager, but Next Generation was the first one I saw.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you. Great insight. At this moment in your life, what is your definition of success?
Hmm. Being in a position where you're continuously learning and following your dreams. My dreams was always to work in something in space industry. And then being in a position where like I can do that, and I'm like in a good financial, good like position. Like I didn't have loans for college. That's how kind of I define success. Like being in a position where I can like freely pursue the stuff that I'm the most passionate about.
Being able to pursue the stuff that you're more passionate about. That's great, great insight.
Yes.
I want you to close your eyes. We're going to take a trip back memory lane. So we're going to take a trip back over to that young lady that was applying to um, the robotics team, right? Let's go back to the robotics team at Rancho del Rey in Chula Vista. And you come back home, and all of a sudden, your present self, are sitting in a chair, and you see your younger little Sophia come into the room, and you say, hey, close the door because I only have about 1 or 2 minutes. open your eyes. What would you say to that young little Sofia?
Just keep going, keep pushing, keep on doing the things you love. And even when it's like hard, even if you're like really busy, as long as you love it, it's worth it in the end. So keep going, keep chasing the stuff you're passionate about.
Keep
Yeah.
chasing your dreams. That's awesome. That's congratulations on that. With that, I'd like to acknowledge you for everything you've done, Sophia. You're a great individual. You're a great role model to all the students. You did fantastic in high school and in university, and now with a new offer in a entry level position at SpaceX, you're doing fantastic. Congratulations. With that, is there anything else that you want to add as we finish this conversation?
I pretty much just like I kind of I've been saying it across like the whole like last hour, just like if you're passionate about something, keep chasing it.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid of asking questions. I think that's something like is really important to learn early on. And yeah, like if there's opportunities to learn something you don't know, especially, you should say yes, even if you're a little scared about it initially. But I think those are the best notes to leave it off of. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And with that, to the audience, thank you so much for joining us. You can definitely reach out to Sofia Pantoja, ask her any follow up questions, connect with her on LinkedIn or any social media that she has. And we'll see you next time. Hasta luego. Bye bye. Thank you.